Welcome. Today I want to talk to you about the question, are we being discipled or are we being mentored? And it's a very important question to have. I love doing word studies, but I discovered once that in the Bible, the Greek word mentor, which was around at the time of the New Testament, is never mentioned in the New Testament. Yet there is another word that's mentioned, and that's discipleship. It made me ask the question, why is discipleship mentioned and mentorship is not? Now, the term mentor, if you look back at the original Greek, talks about a master and talks about a servant, talks about a teacher and talks about a learner. But when Jesus talks about how we are to be, he refers to us as disciples, as we're all learners. None of us are masters. But even Paul, when he's having difficulties with the church in 1 Corinthians, this is what he says. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10 to 13. I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another in what you say, and that there be no divisions among you. Now, that factor is very clear for us, is that the idea of division should not be in God's people. You know, there is not a clergy and there is not a laity. We are all God's people. Whether we lead God's church or whether we are in God's church, we are all being led by God. We are all God's disciples or Jesus' disciples. But that you be perfectly united in mind and thought. My brothers and sisters, some from Chloe's household have informed me that there are quarrels among you. Why are there quarrels? Why are there divisions? We find out here the reason why. What I mean is this: one of you says, I follow Paul. Another says, I follow Apollos. Another, I follow Cephas. Still another says, I follow Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Were you baptized in the name of Paul? What is Paul getting at? What is Paul saying? There is only one head in the Christian family. There is only one person who is in charge. You know, as leaders or as pastors of God's people, we are called to lead but not be in charge. For there is only one person in charge, and that is our Lord Jesus Christ. All authority, he said in Matthew 28, belongs to him. So even though I operate under his authority, it's because of him I operate, and him alone. I hear his voice, I follow his word. That's what it requires us to be. Even those who are in leadership are disciples. And if they stop following the one who is the discipler, then they shouldn't be leading God's people at all. Matthew 23, Jesus talking to his disciples, those who were apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, and evangelists, he says, but you are not to be called rabbi, teacher, master, for you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth Father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Now, I've got no problem with one-on-one ministry. I have no problem with one-on-one discipleship. But the question that we have to ask is, when we are discipling and helping people, are we tying them into ourselves or are we tying them into our Lord Jesus Christ? Because ultimately, he is the mentor. He is the master. We are just his disciples. So when you look at your fellow brothers and sisters, do not jockey for position. Do not desire to be the greatest amongst each other. For the first shall become last, and the last shall become first. I hope you've been blessed by this devotion. Until the next time, take care.